For today's agenda, I'm going over the introduction, discovery, exploration, evaluation, curation, and adoption of my new tech tool. Hello, my name is Rebecca Ellerbee. I'm here to talk about an online platform called NoRedInk. NoRedInk is a review of writing and grammar. I use this with my fourth grade homeschool students because I saw that they needed some extra support in this area and I thought it might be good to try. I want to take you today on the journey of my experiences and discoveries with this tech tool, NoRedInk. When talking about the new tech tool, I want to start with my discovery. Where? Where did I first hear it, see it? Honestly, I Googled a search for writing help with fourth grade. This popped up. How did I go about finding it and actually using the tool resource? I clicked on several. Whenever I did click on this one, I liked the way it was laid out. I liked the way that the name was very catchy. And then the what. What made me think it would enhance the learning for my students? I felt like it would meet the needs of my fourth grade homeschool students since they needed extra help in writing. This was very different from the ways we had done writing in the past, and I felt like this would be a fresh start to practice writing prompts and grammar review. Next, let's talk about exploring this new tech tool. I use things like Facebook, trial and error, and YouTube to really deep dive and learn more about how this tool is used and how to operate it. And then next, I'm going to show you some slides that exemplify where I started and how I used it. To get started, you first have to sign in with an email account. Once you do that, the next step is to make a class. I used YouTube to kind of look at how to add the class. It was super easy. Once you add the class, as seen here on the page, you can name it what you would like. You can have multiple classes as well if you teach multiple subjects or grade levels. Once you create a class, you then can manage that class. If you look at the screen, you can see the buttons for adding a student. Once you add the student, you can do first or last names, you can do an abbreviation, you can give the student a number. But this is the slide where you would, in NoRedInk, add students to your classes, whether they're in multiple classes or one. It is here where you're adding students and managing your classes that when you add a student, you can go ahead and click on text to speech as an option or word translations. Those are the two changes that can be made to modify for students in this program. Once the students are added, you can now assign assignments. If you look, I've clicked writing and practice. Some of the searches that I did with Google and YouTube and Facebook suggested that we do practice first. So in the practice, you can go ahead and add the assignment and click on to make a practice assessment or practice assignment. Here, you can assign one student this, or you can assign your entire class the practice. Same goes for the writing. With the writing prompt, you can add one student who might need a little extra help, or you can add the whole class if it's a review or something that you would like to assign for the class to complete. What exactly does this tool do? While experimenting with this tool, I found it does two things: practice and writing. Practice has to do with more of elements such as describing characters. For example, in this example, it says show me. So if you have problems or the students have concerns about not knowing how to describe a character, they can click on the show me and a video pops up at the bottom. Whenever you watch the video, it asks you questions and gives you questions to answer. Once you're done with that video and feel comfortable, you can go on to the practice. The practice is all about questions with answering where you submit your answer. If you get it wrong, you get a chance at the end to go back. If you get it right, you can see the stars above. It shows you how many you answered correctly and you can move on. At the end, it will illustrate whether you have an understanding of the topic or whether you need to continue working on topics such as describing the characters. While the practice portion of this tool works well with whether you are starting a new topic or whether you're reviewing a topic, the writing portion works well with just review. It gives you a prompt, and then if you're ready to write, it gives you a writing space. The issue with the writing is that it doesn't really teach, doesn't have a rubric, doesn't have any additional support with the writing. So this would be where you would put a final product. If you wanted to add the additional support, that would be my concern with this product. You would have to do it outside of this platform in the classroom with tools and resources that you've used prior that are in good teaching strategies. We used NoRedInk several times a week as a review and practice, especially the activities. I really did not think that the writing would do what I needed it to do for fourth grade. So we stuck to the activities, like I said, mainly with the grammar side. That way they could review, practice, and really get up to where they need to be in relation to the Georgia standards with those grammar standards. Moving on, what actually happened when I used No Red Ink in the learning environment? First, what I did with it was I used it with my fourth grade homeschool students. We used it more for a review of nouns, adjectives, adverbs, the grammar side of fourth grade ELA. That relates to learning standards in the fourth grade, Georgia standards, online, and I used it with these in mind. Starting with No Red Ink, the students were a little bit hesitant to use an online program. But what happened next, when they actually got settled and they actually started doing it, I saw that their scores improved on these standards with nouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs, and linking verbs, which was really exciting. Once they got used to the program, they really did enjoy going in and were excited to use No Red Ink whenever they knew we were going to use it and wanted to use it whenever we weren't using the program. Looking at the Universal Design for Learning guidelines, NoRedInk did pretty well. In Access, it definitely gave autonomy and choice with relevance to what they were learning today. The activities were purely based on relevant need. There was joy and there was play in the nature of those activities. When looking at support, so the design for effort and persistence, the meaning, the goals the students were reaching, the challenge and support, it was all there. It didn't do so well fostering collaboration, but the independence was excellent and the collective learning was a little off as well. Again, there was no way to work with other students. Then also the executive function. For executive function, students were able to recognize expectations, beliefs, and motivations. However, they still are not working on deep awareness of self and others or collective reflection. This is more individualized participation in the activity. This other area would have to be done inside the classroom in a different method. Underrepresentation, the perception with No Red Ink, it supported multiple opportunities to customize the display of information. For example, students could choose if they are, our teachers could choose if the students were ready to learn nouns, if they need to move on to verbs, and multiple ways to perceive the information. They were given different activities to work on depending on what level they were. Language and symbols for support. They were given clarity with vocabulary, especially with words that could be translated into non-English. And they were also given access to text to talk for the visually impaired. Building knowledge for executive function. They were connecting to prior knowledge. Students had to understand what a sentence was in order to work on identifying parts of that sentence. Again, multiple ways of learning were done through this as well. When it comes to action and expression for Universal Design and Learning Guidelines, the interaction was very easily accessible. The students were able to have assistance and they were able to access the technology and tools in an effective and easy manner. It was easy to log on. Once the children learned very quickly how to maneuver the program, they were easily able to pick up how to work this program. With support, they also had a lot of support with practice and performance in No Red Ink. It offered a non-bias idea of expression and communication. The students were able to write down their own ideas in the writing section. In the activities, they definitely had a lot of support and practice with the different areas in which they needed. And for function, the development of the goals, they were easily stated throughout. The plan was easy to follow. Information and resources were there for students. They needed to go back and review what a noun was. They were totally able to do that and redo the activity again. So overall, the No Red Ink definitely hit on a lot of the UDL parts, but it also needed some that it needed to work on. Aside from the UDL guidelines, let's move on to what actually happened once the students moved into using NoRedInk. The reaction to it was very positive. They were excited to be online. The learning curve was slight. They had to log in, they had to find their name, they had to find the activities, they could choose activities. So it was slight, but once they got it, they actually loved this program. What worked the best was whenever we took some cooperation activities in the classroom and added it to the writing. I did do that. That really worked well because again, the writing does not section does not have a lot of collaboration. What also worked really well was whenever they did the activities. They were excited to choose something that they didn't necessarily know and learn more about that topic, such as verbs. It's one example. Again, the writing didn't work so well, but we made it work. It can totally work with this. What would I change about it? If I could change something about the No Red Ink, I would definitely change the collaboration. With the free model, you do not get collaboration between students with peer editing or creating ideas or anything like that. So that would be one tool that I would definitely change with this product. In order to organize, adjust, manage, and oversee the learning environment to integrate this tool, I had to be very organized. To implement this tool in the classroom, when we first started, I divided the students into groups. We went ahead and did some peer brainstorming, different activities like that. And then we went into modeling how to actually use the writing portion. We used the writing portion to write our final copy. That was pretty easy for the students because they just log in and type. When it came to the activities, that was a little bit more difficult because I had to individually help each student log on, show them the way. After modeling, they still needed some support. But once we got past that initial phase, we definitely got into more of an individual learning environment for each student. They were able to go and complete the assignments assigned to them. They were able to ask me, hey, I need some more help with verbs. Can you reassign me something different? They were able to ask questions whenever they went back and maybe didn't understand what an adverb was and look back at the practice section of this. And overall, just overseeing and managing the classroom was needed in order to use this product. Although I did not have to make any accommodations for my students, there are accommodations within this program. No Red Ink allows you to select for students text to speak, and it also allows for you to check for translation of words within the program, which is really nice for those ESOL and other students that need accommodations. Again, aside from adding collaboration for student to student, teacher to student, student to teacher, those types of things, I would not want to change anything about this free version of No Red Ink. I find it overall very useful in the classroom. Students enjoyed it, and there's nothing I would need to change otherwise. As far as No Red Ink goes, I will continue to use this platform to focus on review and instruction for grammar. I also want to use it for writing. I want to practice with the children writing online, typing, so that whenever they do standardized tests, this would be a good review for them and a good skill. Having taught elementary school and middle school, I would suggest this for upper elementary to middle and possibly even ninth grade. But definitely for the middle grades students, they would enjoy being online, they would enjoy the review, and I do think it would be very helpful for them because a lot of times students do come to middle school not knowing the certain elements of the standards that they should have learned, and the review is always a wonderful thing to incorporate in your classroom. Most any school system could adopt this No Red Ink platform since most schools have laptops with headphones and internet access, and that's truly all that you would need with a web browser. And most schools today in the 21st century do have these equipments. And I would suggest that professional development also be available for teachers who feel uncomfortable and actually want to know in depth how this program works. Then professional development might occur weekly in the small groups that when you meet as a middle school when you meet as a grade level. That would be a great place for a professional development. A day of professional development, or actually a half day of professional development with one person leading charge, would be another great example of how to incorporate professional development for this tool. But it does need to be included overall. In the end, I do believe this is a good tool. It's free. It's a great usage of practicing writing and grammar. I found it effective in my classroom, and I would suggest it to other upper elementary and middle school classrooms. I want to thank you for watching my video on No Red Ink. Now, go enjoy your exploration and discovery of this new awesome tech tool.